Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought today we'll talk about the Panzerhaubitze 2000. This was added to the game last update, and also finally is in a position to talk about. I ended up spaded it recently, and I wanted to wait until Gaijin stopped fiddling with it, because they changed it so much over the period of about a week. I didn't really want to talk about it, and also spade it until they stopped doing those things. In that week, they changed the internal model, they added the autoloader, they also changed its reload rate about 3 or 4 times, and even changed its ammo. So if I'd made a video about it earlier, it would probably be completely wrong. So now, let's have a chat about it. Let's talk about the Panzerhaubitze in its current state, and how it's actually pretty fun to play. It does have a few issues, but not huge ones, and generally, it is quite a fun little donk vehicle. So one of the issues that this vehicle had when it came in was the M107 round had the same muzzle velocity as it did on the M44. This basically meant it was a little bit hard to aim, especially with the optics that you had, and you had to wait until you got to the Laser Rangefinder at rank 4 to be very accurate with it. Nowadays, they actually buffed its muzzle velocity to 945 meters per second, so therefore it's a lot better than it was previously, and much easier to aim, especially with the optics that the vehicle has. And also, you get the HEVT version of this shell, which means that you can kind of multi-roll in it pretty effectively, which is quite nice too. It has had an adverse effect though, with this muzzle velocity increase to 945 meters per second. It's basically made the 155mm OE F3 shell, which is the rank 4 one that you get in the modifications, pretty much useless. You have exactly the same penetration, you have pretty much the same muzzle velocity, and pretty much the same explosive mass. The only difference between them is the type of explosive mass that is there. But because of a certain mechanic that they added into the game, it basically made it useless to use. So that kind of sucks. Maybe in the future they can do something with it to make it worthwhile actually kind of getting that thing. But at the moment, that's not the case. Now, what is this mechanic that I'm talking about? Well, one of the things that they added is a new system, and actually Dog for Life told me about this one, because I completely forgot about it until halfway through spading it, and it's switching fuse mode. So in ground right now, if you have stuff like HEVT shells, you can switch their fuse mode from impact to kind of the standard one that they had previously. This means that you can change your proximity shells or your variably timed fuse shells into standard HE shells, which is great. So you don't have to mix and match which ones you take, and it also instantly changes the actual shell itself. So you don't have to have like a warm-up. As I said, you don't need a reload or anything like that. It's just so much easier to use, and means that whatever target is coming at you, basically you can pick what you want to do to deal with it. So if you are using this thing to shoot down planes, usually what you'd have to do with machines like this is you'd have to change the shell in order to fire at the plane, but now you just have to click a button and change it to radio fuse instead of the impact fuse, and bang, it's ready to go straight away. So you can technically make it so much easier to play this vehicle. And that actually helped me out quite a lot in the Panzerhaubitze because of its 155mm. I found it pretty good at taking out aircraft, apart from the fact that targeting speed is not the best. But if you set up on the planes properly, you could take out quite a lot of them. Another great thing about this gun, which sets it apart from a lot of SPHs, or I suppose the difference between kind of the mid-tier SPHs and then the SPHs we get up here, so stuff like the PLZ-05 and also the VDA sit in the same area as the Panzerhaubitze, is the reload. This thing gets a 5-second reload now, but it is only on 2 shells, but then it only goes to a 7.5-second reload. And the actual reload into its first stage is pretty quick. So you get 2 reloads at 5 seconds, and then every one after is at 7.5, which is still very good. And then you can obviously reload it and get it back to that 5-second too. So you really have a very, very good fire rate, which is either better or the same as most vehicles that you run into at this BR, which is pretty nuts. So that to me is really cool. That actually helps it out a lot and will be one of the reasons why it might go up in BR. I know for a fact that, you know, when you look at the VDAR and when you look at the PL05, both of those vehicles are in pretty nice places because of this too. Now let's talk about overpressure, because obviously the reason why this thing is able to do what it does is overpressure. Overpressure is a very annoying mechanic in how it works, and I get why it's so frustrating to face, especially since they're adding more and more of these types of vehicles in, where they have the Laser Rangefinder, they have a lot of damage in terms of what they're able to do, and basically nukes the enemies even if you just get a little smidge of HE, which in the cone is able to penetrate the enemy. Cupola shots are obviously a must in this thing against a lot of heavy tanks, but even stuff like the IS-3, you can shoot it in the cheeks and the round will just go straight through and overpressure the whole vehicle, and that just cannot feel good to fight against, and I just wish it wasn't the case. I really wish overpressure was a little bit more refined, even if it meant these types of vehicles went down in BR, because at least it would be a little bit fair to, a little bit more fair, I should say, to actually have a bit of fun with. So it doesn't feel very satisfying when playing these types of vehicles, because what happens is you shoot it right at an enemy and it's either a 1 or 0, and the enemy either gets donked or they don't get donked, and sometimes it feels like you have no real choice what happens, whether it's positive or whether it's negative, and that's just an issue with all of these things. Now the Panzerhaubitze, it has very good mobility. It has a 1,000 horsepower engine on this thing, and also has a very good transmission, so you can fire the gun and then go retreat and then go backwards and have a good time. It is pretty heavy, but the engine and transmission combo just means that it moves around really well. The actual survivability is terrible, but this kind of should be known. It does actually have surprisingly a decent amount of kind of cover from the air, because it has this weird composite screen on it, so it's a bit harder to actually kill with planes, but from the front it just gets annihilated by tanks. One of the things I will say to watch out for, so this thing is incredibly long, meaning that if you decide to like push forward with it, the transmission, engine and all of this stuff in the front takes up a lot of area, and one of the things is the power system, which deals with the FCS, the gun stabilizer, and also the radar on the vehicle, and also just the engine power, is right next to the engine, the transmission, in a long line on the side. If that gets hit, you lose complete power to your engine, and also complete power to your turret and your targeting system, and it's really annoying, and it's just a huge power pack on the side of the vehicle, so that really hurts in terms of, you know, playing this thing. So just watch out for that while you're going around. Another thing is the lineup you have: the Marder, the M48, and also you have the Arado, the ME262 that you can bring along. It's a pretty decent lineup. Like, I enjoyed it quite a lot. You also have stuff like the Lux if you want to add that in, or even the Mouse if you have that. But the Mouse is the second spawn, doesn't really work very well in general. It's something that, you know, would be better in different areas. And one thing I did find with this thing is there was a lot of down tiers. If you actually have a look at the BRs right now, at 7.0 and 7.3, there isn't a lot for many nations, apart from America and maybe Soviet. So this puts this vehicle in kind of a unique position, where since a lot of people are playing 6.7, you can actually get into that 6.7, 7.7 bracket quite a lot, and that means you do face a lot of heavies. But as I said, with this gun, if you have that Laser Rangefinder, which, you know, isn't that hard to get with this vehicle, then you can just hit the cupolas and everything dies instantly. This thing also has smoke grenades, which means that you can generally, you know, be able to reposition with the really good transmission. And another thing is, it also struggles in the targeting speed, so targeting that horizontal drive and elevation mechanism first is definitely the way to go. But I was pleasantly surprised by this vehicle. I didn't think it would be as fun as it was. I thought it would be a little bit arduous. I thought it was going to be a bit of a problem in terms of actually playing the thing, and that's just because of the fact that these types of vehicles, they either go one or two ways for me, which is you run into a lot of heavy targets, and because you run into a lot of heavy targets, you can't really do a lot, or you get cast a lot, which is the other part of it. But with this vehicle, it was a quite nice happy medium between the two kind of playstyles. So I played 28 battles in this to spade it, so we didn't play a lot of battles to get it done. 61% win rate, 64 ground kills, 10 air kills, and 22 deaths. So the vast majority of the games we are dying, which shouldn't be a surprise, but we're also going at a 3.5 to 1 KD, including donking aircraft for our team. I'd say that's pretty good for this type of vehicle, and I get why some people want it to go up in BR. Not sure it will though, just because the VDAR is at a higher BR, and also the PLZ has been stuck at this BR since it's been out. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.